they cannot afford that home.
Quietly putting it out into the real estate world that really they want to get rid of this mansion.
They're not being slick. We see what they're doing. So Harry has left. He's leaving California to be more of a working royal.
Montecito was supposed to represent a fresh beginning for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. The privacy, luxury, and distance from royal life were meant to show that they had built a successful new world in California.
Instead, questions are now surrounding the future of their Montecito mansion, with reports suggesting the property may be quietly tested with potential buyers rather than openly placed on the market. The home has long carried symbolic weight because it became the backdrop for the Sussexes' post-royal life.
This word, I think, could sum up quite a lot of what the Sussexes are currently going through. Unsussexful. You get it?
From private family moments to their carefully constructed California image. That is why any suggestion that they could eventually leave the property attracts so much attention.
And the timing has created another layer to the story. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce have reportedly been considering property in the same Montecito area.
So is it really a coincidence that as Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are quietly trying to hawk their Montecito home without putting it on the market and going through the embarrassment of having to do that, we learned Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, two of their sworn Hollywood enemies, could be looking to buy in the...
On its own, that would simply be another celebrity real estate story. Montecito is already home to some of the wealthiest and most recognizable people in California, and its privacy, security, schools, and large gated estates make it an obvious choice for high-profile families. But the speculation becomes more interesting because Taylor has a very different relationship with the British royal family than Meghan Markle does.
Taylor has already spent time in Montecito, including during Selena Gomez and Benny Blanco's wedding weekend, so the area is hardly unfamiliar territory for her.
More importantly, the contrast between Taylor and Meghan goes beyond geography.
Taylor's in her mid-30s. She's always wanted to be a mom. They are looking for a place where they can raise their family, have kids, and good schools all around. And, you know, Montecito does fit that bill. It is private. A lot of billionaires are there. Security is always around. If it's not yours, it's someone else's. And no high crime rate. The schools are excellent. So I could see why they would want to move.
During the period when Meghan was developing her Archetypes podcast, Taylor Swift was reportedly approached personally, including through a handwritten invitation, but she ultimately did not appear on the program. Meghan had already attracted major names such as Serena Williams, Mariah Carey, Paris Hilton, and others, which made Taylor's absence particularly noticeable.
There was also a reported attempt to connect with Taylor during her Los Angeles concert. That interaction reportedly did not happen either.
Trying to sort of suggest, oh, look, our kitchen has been updated, even though nothing has really changed. And Nancy Sidley pointed out, my girl Ristine Dollface was right. Why would this be in a Realtor magazine? And there is the headline on Realtor.com. Meghan Markle starts her 45th birthday with a pajama party around the kitchen of $14.7 million Montecito mansion. I mean, there's no way that they need to write about it on a website like that, P. Diner, unless the house is going to be coming up for sale.
None of that establishes a personal feud between the two women, and it is important not to turn speculation into fact. Taylor has never publicly declared some grand campaign against Meghan, and there are ordinary explanations for declining an appearance or not meeting someone backstage. But the absence of a visible relationship matters because Meghan had made a very deliberate effort to bring Taylor into her podcast orbit, while Taylor remained outside it.
The good news is Lily and Archie are too old to ever go to school with their children, so they wouldn't have to run into each other at, I don't know, a bake sale or a PTA event.
There certainly wouldn't be any little as-ever barbecues between those two couples.
Then there's the royal connection, and this is where the comparison becomes much more striking. Taylor's relationship with Prince William goes back years.
In 2013, William appeared on stage with Taylor Swift and Jon Bon Jovi at a charity event, creating a connection that existed long before the Sussexes California chapter. In 2024, William took Prince George and Princess Charlotte to Taylor's Eras Tour show in London, where they met Taylor and Travis Kelce backstage. The interaction was relaxed, public, and friendly, giving Taylor a visible connection with the Wales family rather than with the Sussexes.
Even if Taylor and Travis move to Montecito, they still won't give Harry and Meghan the time of day. And Harry and Meghan spare, arguing, please don't insult Taylor and Travis by associating them in any way with the two grifters. Thank you.
That does not mean Taylor and Travis moving to Montecito would somehow be a statement against Harry and Meghan, but it creates an awkward coincidence.
One couple could potentially be establishing a new family life in a neighborhood where the Sussexes already have their mansion, while Harry appears increasingly interested in spending more time back in Britain. For Meghan, that creates an uncomfortable comparison because Montecito was presented as the center of the new American chapter. Yet the most prominent royal association surrounding Taylor has been with William and Catherine. The symbolism is difficult to ignore, even if the property decisions themselves have nothing to do with one another.
They will also not be showing up at any parties that the Sussexes are at. And by that, I mean the Kelceys will not be hanging out at parties. I mean, if they were, you and I both know that somebody with her selfie stick would run up to Taylor and be like, just a quick one, click, and then post it the next day. And that's not going to happen.
No, they are not going to allow themselves to be anywhere near.
And then Harry's changing relationship with Britain adds another piece to the puzzle. Reports cited in the discussion say he intends to return to the United Kingdom every few months.
The stated reasons are straightforward: spending more time with his family and supporting British charities and organizations with which he has long-standing connections. The reported plan includes another visit in September, with Harry expected to spend roughly a week in Britain, while his broader schedule could bring him back regularly over the following year.
Remember, Meghan, and this is when she was still big enough to attract some stars, was so desperate to get Taylor Swift on the Archetypes podcast. She wrote her that handwritten missive. And Taylor, when she makes a decision and she is loyal to someone, she sticks by it. But I think more than that, she was just so disgusted about why you would turn on your own blood relatives in the way that these two did. I mean, Taylor is very, very much a family woman through and through.
That is significant because Harry's life after leaving royal duties was built around establishing California as his primary base, so a more regular presence in Britain represents a noticeable change in direction.
His recent reunion with King Charles has also been described as leaving Harry energized. Whatever the long-term meaning, Britain clearly remains an important part of his identity.
Considering real estate in Montecito, I mean, it is clearly nothing to do with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. These two are out and out now on Team Prince William and Catherine.
Harry does not need to announce a formal return to royal duties for that relationship to become more visible. Regular visits, family meetings, and appearances connected to long-standing British causes could gradually make his presence in the United Kingdom feel normal again. At the same time, Meghan's public and professional life remains centered largely in California, creating an increasingly noticeable difference between the direction Harry appears to be taking and the world she has built around Montecito.
I mean, it's so many things that are going wrong. And it's like the more they try to say or to put out there, the worse it is. It just seems like who are the people in her circle that are putting all of this out there? I mean, don't they know that we are on to her? Like, we get it. Nothing is working. Like, what has worked for them, Dan? What?
Well,
nothing.
But Harry returning to Britain does not automatically mean he is becoming a working royal again. There has been no official announcement of that.
Buckingham Palace has not announced a formal royal comeback, and there is no confirmed half-in, half-out arrangement waiting to be approved. What makes the situation interesting is the possibility of something much quieter. Harry could increase his British presence through family visits, charitable work, and private meetings without ever declaring that he has returned to royal duties. Over time, repeated appearances could gradually change how the public sees his relationship with the monarchy.
That would be very different from the dramatic return many people imagine. Harry would not need a balcony appearance or a new royal role.
Meghan attended a Taylor Swift concert and very desperately wanted to go backstage to say hello. And she was rebuffed with the note saying Taylor just rests her voice before every
And that so
concert.
isn't true. That so isn't true. Because if there's a celebrity that Taylor wants to look after, she will see them.
He could simply become a familiar presence in Britain again. A charity engagement here, time with his father there, another visit connected to an organization he has supported for years, and eventually the distinction between an ex-working royal visiting Britain and a prince maintaining an active British public life could become less obvious. That is why the reported frequency of his visits matters more than any single trip.
Back and forth, spending time away from your family, that tells me there's a problem in the marriage. Because if your wife is not trying to do these things with you, then you two have agreed that I'm going to split my time in the UK and I'm going to be here in America when I need to be, but really I'm going to be in the UK getting my foot back into my royal role. Now that's what it sounds like to me. And watch it start to happen. Watch.
And there is an important piece of history behind this. Harry and Meghan originally wanted to step back while retaining some connection to royal life.
In January 2020, they proposed an arrangement that would allow them to reduce their senior royal duties while becoming financially independent and dividing their time. The eventual arrangement did not provide the hybrid role they had envisioned, and Queen Elizabeth rejected the idea of remaining partly inside official royal duties while pursuing an independent commercial life. 6 years later, Harry potentially spending more time in Britain while still maintaining his California residence creates an interesting echo of that original tension.
Then, of course, she runs to Beyonce and goes backstage behind Beyonce in a couple months later. And you're just like, oh, okay. But, and where's Beyonce now? She's filing her nails in the corner, just trying to pretend she doesn't see Meghan.
The difference now is that Harry could pursue a softer version without formally asking for the old arrangement. He could live in California and still become increasingly visible in Britain.
That would allow him to rebuild relationships without making a dramatic announcement. His existing links to British charities, his family connections, and his status as the son of King Charles already provide legitimate reasons for returning. If those visits become routine, the public could gradually become accustomed to seeing Harry in Britain again, without ever being told that a royal restoration is taking place.
It makes a lot of sense that, they're just trying to put it out there because I think a lot of people already know about it. I think it's been circulating for a while now. And clearly she is trying to get it out there that, things are improving with the home or whatever. Like, people may or may not be interested in it. I don't know. I just think, Meghan is in a world of hurt around a lot of things. And this is just another example of something that she's, trying to, get out of in terms of the debt that they're in, and they cannot afford that home.
And that brings the focus back to Meghan. The reported British schedule is primarily about Harry.
There is no clear evidence in the material that Meghan intends to copy Harry's travel pattern or rebuild a comparable public life in Britain. That does not prove a separation, and it does not prove that the marriage is in trouble, but it does create a very different public image for the couple. Harry appears to be increasing his connection with Britain, while Meghan's professional and lifestyle ambitions remain censored in California.
I think trying to link Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift is ludicrous. I mean, Taylor and Travis have absolutely picked a side, right?
That distinction matters because Harry's value as a public figure has always been deeply connected to Britain. In America, he is a celebrity with a royal title. In Britain, his entire identity is tied to the monarchy.
California gave Harry distance from that identity, but Britain gives it meaning. He is the son of the king and the brother of the future king, and his history, charitable work, and public recognition were built around that institution.
Now, it is not what you think, but it is what you think, if you know what I mean.
After years of attempting to establish an independent Sussex identity, returning more frequently to Britain could suggest that the royal connection remains central to his public relevance.
And if Harry spends more time in Britain, Montecito becomes less clearly the center of his life. That does not mean he has left California.
It simply means the balance could be changing. The mansion was once presented as the foundation of a new chapter, a private American base where Harry and Meghan could build their family away from the pressures of royal life. But if Harry is repeatedly crossing the Atlantic for family, charity, and public commitments, the California property becomes only one part of his world rather than the unquestioned center of it.
Frequent visits would achieve much more than a few charity meetings. It would. They would allow Harry to rebuild his public profile in Britain, repair damaged family relationships, and slowly reinsert himself into royal life without ever having to announce a formal comeback.
Then there's the question of what happens if Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce actually decide to make Montecito their home. Their arrival would represent something very different.
They would not need Montecito to establish themselves as major American celebrities because that status already exists. Taylor would arrive with an enormous global audience, an established career, and a level of cultural influence that does not depend on proximity to Hollywood or royalty. Meanwhile, the Sussex mansion would remain surrounded by questions about whether Harry and Meghan intend to keep it permanently, sell it, or quietly test the market before making any public decision.
Because after years of interviews, accusations, court battles, and a lot of public criticism of the royal institution, walking straight back through the palace gates would be almost impossible. Because we've been watching and following this whole thing. The public backlash would be immediate.
That is why the property story has become bigger than a house. It's about what Montecito represents.
The mansion became a symbol of the Sussexes' post-royal vision: California freedom, privacy, celebrity connections, commercial opportunities, and the completely different family lifestyle. If the property eventually changes hands, that would not erase everything Harry and Meghan built there, but it would mark a significant change in the meaning of that chapter. And if another globally recognized couple moves into the same community while Harry is increasingly looking towards Britain, the contrast becomes impossible to miss.
So the real question is no longer simply whether the Sussexes are selling a mansion. It is whether the life that mansion represented is changing.
According to the Times, Harry now wants to visit the United Kingdom every few months. Now, the official explanation is perfectly respectable because he wants to see his family more often and provide greater support to Britain charities.
The speculation remains just that, unless Harry and Meghan publicly confirm a sale or move. So it is important not to treat private real estate rumors as established fact. But the reported property interest, Taylor and Travis's possible plans, and Harry's increasingly regular British schedule create a clear shift in the story surrounding Montecito. And if you are following this developing royal story, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and share your view in the comments, because the most revealing part is not the price of the house, but what the changing roles of Harry and Meghan may say about where their lives are actually heading.
Harry being in America makes absolutely no sense. The man is a prince from the United Kingdom. What's his butt doing over here in America playing Disneyland? I've always said this, people. He's got no value in America as a prince.
The most uncomfortable part of this story may be the question of what Montecito represents now. The mansion was once presented as the permanent foundation of the Sussexes' American future.
It was supposed to embody independence from the institution they had stepped away from, while giving Harry and Meghan a private base for raising their family and pursuing their commercial ambitions.
I want to start seeing him show up to more family events. Like Harry will be there without Meghan. So he's trying to integrate slowly back into the royal family and spending less time in California, but still saying officially he's in California.
The property became closely associated with the image of California freedom, from its secluded grounds and security to the lifestyle they were building away from Britain. That is why speculation about the home's future carries a meaning far beyond an ordinary luxury property transaction.
But a house can remain valuable while the story attached to it changes. That distinction is important here.
But returning quietly every few months, attending respected charity events, being photographed, supporting sick children and wounded veterans, spending private time with the king, just the king, I mean, like the top of the echelon right now, that is a much easier image to sell.
Even if Harry and Meghan never sell the property, Harry spending more time in Britain would alter its role within the family's life. Montecito could remain their residence while becoming less central to Harry's public identity, particularly if his British visits become a regular part of his schedule. At the same time, Meghan's California-based projects and lifestyle ambitions would keep the property connected to the world she has been trying to establish there.
We've seen him go back for the Invictus Games, for Birmingham. Now we're going to see him go back in September, where he's going to be staying at Buckingham Palace. They're doing all these little short stints to try to get the public used to seeing Harry back as a working royal within the fold of royalty. They're not being slick. We see what they're doing, okay?
And this is where Taylor Swift's possible move becomes such an interesting piece of the wider picture. Her arrival would not necessarily have anything to do with Meghan.
Montecito already attracts people who can afford enormous amounts of privacy, and Taylor and Travis would have their own reasons for considering the area. Their reported interest, therefore, should not be interpreted as evidence of a dispute or deliberate attempt to occupy the Sussexes' territory. But if they did eventually purchase a home there, the contrast would be unavoidable. One couple arriving with an already established global celebrity identity, while the other is dealing with renewed questions about the future of the California chapter they once presented as a decisive new beginning.
Give him a little bit more room and access to being within the royal fold, slowly but surely, and then before you know it, he's like back pretty much as a working royal.
There is also an important difference in how Taylor and Meghan relate to royal circles. Taylor's connection with William and Catherine developed naturally over time.
The 2013 charity appearance with William and John Bon Jovi was followed years later by Taylor meeting William, George, Charlotte, and Travis backstage at her London concert.
California may offer a lot of freedom, access to A-listers when they're willing, which is less so now, different commercial opportunities, but Britain is where his royal identity carries the greatest weight.
The material also describes a later private meeting involving Taylor, Travis, William, and Catherine ahead of Taylor and Travis's wedding. Whatever the private nature of those relationships, the public record described here shows that Taylor already has a connection with the Wales family that does not depend on Meghan or Harry.
That's not what Meghan is looking to do. I think at some point she may have to do it because Hollywood has given up on her. She doesn't have enough talent. She doesn't have enough je ne sais quoi to make it work in California. She just doesn't.
That makes the possible Montecito overlap more symbolic than practical. Living nearby does not mean becoming friends.
In a community filled with wealthy and famous residents, physical proximity can exist alongside complete social separation. Taylor could purchase a property nearby without ever becoming part of Meghan's circle, just as Meghan could continue living there without having any meaningful relationship with Taylor.
We've seen him go back for the Invictus Games, for Birmingham. Now we're going to see him go back in September, where he's going to be staying at Buckingham Palace. They're doing all these little short stints to try to get the public used to seeing Harry back as a working royal within the fold of royalty. They're not being slick. We see what they're doing, okay?
The real tension comes from the comparison created by the circumstances, because Meghan once attempted to bring Taylor into her podcast world, while Taylor's most visible royal association has been with William and Catherine.
Meanwhile, Harry's direction is becoming increasingly difficult to separate from the larger question of his royal identity. His repeated trips to Britain would place him closer to the family and institutions he once left behind.
That does not erase the events of the past several years, and it does not mean every British visit is part of a coordinated restoration. Harry still has his life in California, and there has been no official declaration that he is returning to full-time royal duties. But regular contact with family and continued involvement with British causes could gradually rebuild a form of public relevance that is much harder for him to maintain in America.
In other words, Harry may not need to move back permanently for Britain to become more important again. A change in frequency can change the entire perception.
If he begins appearing in Britain every few months, supporting charities, seeing his father, and maintaining connections with organizations such as Well Child, those activities could become a normal part of his public life.
So Harry has left. He's leaving California to be more of a working royal. He hasn't completely left California, but that is what he is looking to do more often.
That would create a softer version of royal reintegration without requiring the palace to announce anything dramatic. It would also make the original California narrative look very different, because the man who once moved across the Atlantic to establish a separate life would once again be spending substantial time in the country where his public identity was created.
And Meghan is left with a very different question. If Harry's public role becomes increasingly British, where does that leave the Montecito vision she helped build?
The available material does not establish that Meghan intends to abandon California, nor does it establish that the couple is separating. What it does show is a widening difference in emphasis. Harry's reported plans point toward more family contact and British charitable involvement, while Meghan's ambitions remain closely associated with California and the American entertainment and lifestyle world. That difference does not automatically signal a personal crisis, but it does make the future role of their Montecito home much harder to define.
The irony is that Montecito was supposed to make the Sussex story simpler. Instead, it may have become a measure of how much that story has changed.
Meghan Markle is trying to sell the house, but do so on the quiet. Like, she can't just put it on the market, because imagine.
5 years ago, the narrative was straightforward. Harry and Meghan had left Britain and were building a new life in California on their own terms. Now the picture contains several competing directions at once, with questions around the mansion, reports of possible interest from Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and Harry preparing for more regular time in Britain. None of those developments alone proves that the Sussexes are abandoning Montecito, but together they show why the property is now being viewed as part of a much larger transition in the couple's public lives.
Ultimately, the Montecito question is bigger than whether a mansion changes hands. It is about whether the life Harry and Meghan imagined there still functions the way they expected.
When they established their California base, Montecito represented independence, privacy, and a new identity separate from the formal machinery of the monarchy. The property became part of that message, a physical reminder that they had chosen a different path and intended to build their future outside Britain. But the current picture is more complicated, with renewed attention on the home's future and Harry reportedly preparing to spend substantially more time in the United Kingdom.
The possible arrival of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce adds another layer, but it should not be mistaken for proof of some celebrity showdown.
A change without official announcements, but I'm going to be doing more and more with my royal family. That's what he's looking to do. Trying to be slick about it, because that's what the royal family does.
Montecito is already a destination for people seeking security and privacy.
If Taylor and Travis eventually buy there, they would simply become another extremely high-profile couple in an already exclusive community. Their reasons could be completely unrelated to Harry and Meghan, particularly because the area offers the kind of privacy that wealthy families often prioritize. The interesting part is not that Taylor might share a neighborhood with Meghan, but that Taylor already has her own established relationships, including a visible connection with William and Catherine, meaning she would not need access to the Sussexes to strengthen her position in either Hollywood or royal circles.
And that brings us back to the unanswered property question. Reports of a possible quiet approach to buyers are not the same thing as a confirmed sale.
A private inquiry, an off-market conversation, or an attempt to understand potential interest does not mean the owners have definitely decided to leave.
It's looking more like Harry's goal and less of Meghan's goal. That could change, but I'm not so sure it will.
Luxury properties can circulate privately for a long time before anything becomes public, and there is no evidence here establishing a completed transaction. So the responsible conclusion is not that Harry and Meghan have already sold their Montecito home, but that speculation about its future has become persistent enough to influence the broader narrative around their California life.
The Harry's reported British schedule may be the more significant development. It changes the question from where he lives to where he is most publicly relevant.
In California, Harry remains a globally recognized figure, but his royal identity is inevitably less powerful because he's physically separated from the institution that created that identity. In Britain, every family connection, charity appearance, and meeting with senior members of the royal family carries a different level of significance. That is why regular British visits could gradually reshape his public position without requiring a formal return to working royal duties.
There's also something practical about that strategy. Harry does not have to choose between two countries in one dramatic move.
He can maintain California as a home base while spending more time in Britain, particularly if his commitments there are connected to causes he supported for years. That approach would avoid the political and institutional complications of requesting a formal royal role, while still allowing him to rebuild visibility and family contact. It would be a gradual adjustment rather than a public declaration that everything about the Sussexes' previous decision had been reversed.
For Meghan, however, that creates a different challenge. Her California identity has been built around independence from the royal institution.
If Harry becomes increasingly present in Britain while Meghan remains primarily focused on California, the couple's public lives could begin to look more geographically divided, even if their private family life remains unchanged. The source material does not establish a separation or divorce, and those conclusions would go beyond the evidence. What can reasonably be observed is that Harry's reported direction is becoming more Britain-focused, while the Montecito-centered image remains much more closely associated with Meghan.
That is why the Montecito mansion has become such a useful symbol for this entire story. It represents a chapter that was once presented as a permanent destination.
The original idea was that Harry and Meghan could leave the pressures of royal life behind, create financial independence, raise their children privately, and build a successful American brand. Yet the latest developments described here point toward a more complicated reality. Questions around the property, speculation about another celebrity couple entering the neighborhood, and Harry's increasing interest in Britain. None of those facts individually prove that the Sussexes' California project has failed, but together they show how dramatically the circumstances surrounding that project have evolved.
And perhaps that is the real reversal. The story began with Harry leaving Britain for California, while now Harry appears increasingly interested in returning to Britain more often.
At the same time, Montecito remains a place where the Sussexes attempted to establish their independent future, even as questions about how permanent that future will be continue to circulate. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce may or may not eventually become neighbors, and Harry and Meghan may or may not ultimately sell their property. So those outcomes should remain open questions rather than declared conclusions. What is clear is that the symbolism has changed. The California mansion no longer represents only an escape from royal life. It now sits at the center of a much broader discussion about identity, relevance, family, and where Harry and Meghan see their future.
Montecito was supposed to be the final destination. Now it looks more like a chapter whose meaning is still being rewritten.
And that is what makes the story worth watching without exaggerating what the evidence can prove. Harry's reported return visits to Britain, Meghan's continued California focus, and the ongoing speculation around their mansion all point toward a changing balance rather than one definitive ending. The Sussexes' next decisions will ultimately determine whether Montecito remains the permanent heart of their family life or becomes the address associated with the beginning of a very different chapter.